Y'all, are we really surprised that Shauna is the antler queen? I mean, quiet as it's kept, she always walking around with her nostrils flared like she a bull running through a china shop. Okay. Hey y'all, welcome or welcome back to my channel Reviewed, where we talk about all things television and film from today and yesteryear. So today I wanted to come on here and do a brief recap of Yellowjackets season 3 finale, and this episode was all kinds of crazy. Okay, so it starts off basically where you have Shauna. She getting people to pull Natalie up out of her hut like they doing a search and seize. Okay, like they literally snatched her up out of her hut like she was a prison and a cellmate, and they up here looking for stuff to confiscate. And then so while they're standing there, Natalie's like, what is going on? Here go Hannah. Oh, don't worry, it'll be over soon. Like, Hannah, you need to tread lightly, baby. You ain't even been in the crew long enough. Like, you ain't got no reason to be thinking you have some type of authority over here with the Yellow Jackets. Like, girl, please. And so while they're searching her room, Natalie has a flashback of her encounter with Misty from earlier that night, where she is like, girl, you mean to tell me you knew where this box was from this plane the whole time? She was like, you kept this from us. And Misty, she's apologetic and she's like, I'm sorry. I know, I know, I know. And baby, Natalie slaps fire from Misty's face. Okay. So Misty up there looking crazy. And she's like, are you going to tell everybody else? Are you going to let anybody else know? Natalie's like, can we get home? That's all I need to know. Is this box going to get us home? And so Misty explains to Natalie that Van, she found a box of a phone, that the frog people had brought or whatever. And she was like, this stick here should allow her to be able to fix it so she can make phone calls for them to get out of that place. We also get a moment where Lottie is having a dream, and the young Lottie ends up going into the morgue where the adult Lottie is there laying on the bed. She ends up waking up and they end up having a conversation. And the young Lottie tells the adult Lottie, it's time to meet her. And they're speaking about the Antler Queen because we also see in the dream that Lottie is she is in the presence of the Antler Queen. So Shauna and Thaisa, they are in the car, and Thaisa is basically directing Shauna on where to go so she can go, and bury Van. I do not appreciate the fact that we did not get to see Thaisa in full blown grieving mode. I get it; they had to wrap the episode up, you know what I'm saying? But I just don't feel like Van was paid her respects. Okay, I just don't think she got her just dues from Thaisa, who's supposed to be the love of her life. Like, I did not appreciate that at all. And honey, Thaisa was not here for Shauna trying to help her at all.
Here, at least let me help
You're
you.
not fucking touching her.
So Ty goes into the middle of the woods and she starts to dig a hole for Van, and she ends up rolling her body over into the grave. So she leans over it and she starts saying to her, I'm going to make myself remember everything. I'm going to remember for you. I'm going to remember for me. And we start getting all these flashes of her and Ty, as teenagers and as adults. And so while she's saying this, she ends up pulling out a knife. And I'm like, girl, wait a minute. What is this? What in the Farfanugan are you about to do? And honey, she starts to carve into Van's body. So she pulls out, I don't know if it's a kidney, I don't know if it's a liver, I don't know if it's her heart, but whatever part of Van's body Ty pulls out, she ends up biting into it and eating it. And I'm like, so you mean to tell me this the only way you're going to be able to remember what happened to you all in the wilderness? Like, girl, y'all and this cannibalism are sending me, and I'm not sure in which direction. Okay. So Misty, she ends up pulling up on Callie at school, and Callie was like, girl, I'm at school. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, what's up? So they start talking, and Misty asks Callie, she's like, by chance, did you put something in my drink? That time I was at your mama's house. And Callie was like, yeah, my bad. I just didn't appreciate the fact that my mom, sent you over there to babysit me instead of just leaving me there with Lottie. Like, girl, I didn't need no babysitter. Like, I was trying to chit chat with Lottie or whatever. So Misty was like, yeah, about that. She was like, I noticed that Lottie had a picture of you on her phone, and I also noticed that you were wearing the necklace. Like, I'm sure your mom knew about this. And Kelly was like, yeah. And Miss was like, She said, so the fact that Shauna's DNA was up under Lottie's nails, she was like, but your mom was the one that, 86 Lottie, it was you. And so Callie was like, yeah, girl, my bad. It was an accident. I really didn't mean to do that. And so she goes into detail about the situation that happened that ultimately led up to Lottie being sent to be with the Grim Reaper. Now, I'm not going to hold you. I was not expecting this twist. I had no clue that Callie would have been the person that, took Lottie out of here. And, like Missy was explaining to her, she was like, now it makes sense because, once you think about the whole receipt that Misty found, and, Shauna necessarily couldn't have been in two places at one time. So since Callie is Shauna's daughter, now it makes sense as to her being the culprit, that got Lottie up out of here. So Callie goes into the whole situation. She goes to see Lottie. She was like, once her mom put her out, she noticed that the tape that was sent over there was missing too. And she said the only other person that would have known about the tape was Lottie. So she went and she knew where Lottie was because Lottie told Callie that she was going to be staying with her father. So she went over to see Lottie and basically to get the tape back. But of course, things didn't necessarily go that way. When she started talking to Lottie, Lottie started saying all this crazy stuff about how the wilderness took the baby from them, but ended up giving them Callie. And she's basically saying that Callie is like her mom, but Callie is more powerful. And, Callie is not understanding exactly where Lottie is coming from. And she was like, girl, my mama told me about you.
Stop it. Stop it. You were freaking me out. My mom was right. You were not well. I should not have come here.
You only could have come here.
And also during the conversation, Callie asked Lottie, she's like, does my mom even love me? And she was like, your mom is jealous of you because she can't be you, or something to that effect. But Lottie also says to Callie, she's like, you're just like your mother. And that just sent her over the edge, honey. And she ends up pushing Lottie down the stairs. Now, after Lottie hit the floor, Callie is still standing on the stairs and she's staring. And to me, honey, that necessarily wasn't accidental. You felt away and you pushed her down the stairs. You stood there for a moment and then you go, oh my God, Lottie, Lottie, Lottie. But if you really felt like it was an accident, instead of you going down there to retrieve a tape, you would have been trying to see if you could resuscitate her to possibly wake her up. So no, to me, that necessarily was not an accident. So while we are seeing this play out, we also get a flash forward to us seeing Callie tell her dad what actually happened to Lottie. So her dad, he's basically taking it all in. He does not necessarily know how to respond to what Callie is saying to him. And, she was like, is Lottie right? Am I just like mom? Am I just like her? And he was like, no, you're nothing like your mom. I've been around you your whole life. You're nothing like your mom. And he was like, it took her 25 years to tell me 10 minutes of something that happened to her. And here you are revealing everything that basically have encountered and been through. Again, I just don't see it for Callie right now in this moment, because to me, what she did to Lottie, I don't feel like it was an accident. Because I'm like, were you the one who called 911? Did you report what happened to Lottie, or did someone else have to find her? But I mean, they didn't necessarily answer those questions. But nonetheless, her dad is being supportive of her, and he basically lets her know that he doesn't have any ill feelings toward her, that he loves her, and everything's gonna be okay. So Misty walks up to Van. She's trying to get an update on how things are going with the transporter and the phone box or whatever, trying to figure out if it's working. And Van is basically like, not exactly, but we're gonna figure it out. And so while they're chatting it up, you hear this loud scream. So, honey, Akila is screaming and crying her face off because all the animals in the little pen area are 86, right? So everybody, they're gathered around, they're looking at all the animals, and Akita was like, this is just like my vision. She's all upset and just like, what is going on? And Lottie was like, it's the wilderness is not satisfied with what's been going on. And Natalie was like, what you mean it's not satisfied? Like, hasn't there been enough bloodshed? Like, we've been 86 and people left and right, and she starts calling off all the people. And then Lottie's like, yeah, but it was no one that we basically who meant anything to us, is what Lottie is trying to get at. Like, yeah, we've given a lot of sacrifices to the wilderness, but it hasn't necessarily been one of us. And I guess she means by people that we actually care about. And so she's like,
We have to have another hunt.
so they decide that they're going to have another hunt. And this is where the whole card situation come into play. So remember earlier this season where we saw the adult Thaisa and Van, they bought the deck of cards. and they was flipping the cards, and they was like, whoever the queen chooses, that's the person that they were going to sacrifice to give Van extra time or whatever. So this is where that concept came from. So they are Vanessa and Thaisa. They're back in the hut and they're discussing the upcoming hunt that's getting ready to come up and about the cards. So Ty says to Van, she was like, we are basically, she was trying to say they were at an advantage because they could potentially set it up to where neither one of them got the cards. And Van is not trying to hear that. She's like, that's not cool. Basically that's cheating. And Ty was like, but you did it before. And Vanessa's like, yeah, girl, that's because I ain't want to do certain chores. That's something different. This right here is playing with people's lives. And Thais was like, yes, but we have control of this. And she was like, we can control who gets the card. And ultimately she's hinting at Hannah because Hannah has not been the crew long, which I understand. I get that. But ultimately Van is like,
You're asking me to pick who dies?
so while they are in the wilderness having a card dilemma, honey, Shauna is having a family dilemma. Okay. Ma'am goes home calling for her husband and her daughter. No one answers. A house is not a home at this moment. Okay. She's walking through the house, opens up the closets, see that they are bare. Shauna, you've been spending a lot of time in closets lately, haven't you? But anyway, honey, notices that no one is home. And ma'am, no one is picking up the phone either. Okay.
You have reached a number that has been disconnected or is no longer in service.
So here we are, the morning of the hunt pick, okay? And sidebar, when I tell you winter came and did not wait for anybody, okay, do y'all see all this beautiful snow? So everyone stands around in a circle and they start to pull the cards. And, for whatever reason, and y'all know I do not see it for this heifer. I do not like Shauna, but for whatever reason, her intuition be on point. I don't know if it's because she's in the wilderness and the wilderness is giving her this sixth sense or what. However, I cannot be mad at the fact that girl know how to pull a trigger and ma'am intuition be on point. Okay. So Shauna in her sixth sense goes and insert herself in the circle to pick a card, any card, okay? And Thaisa was like, girl, we got this. You can go back to where you came from. We don't need you throwing anything off. And so Shauna was like, whatever it wills, it wills. Whatever's going to happen, it's going to happen. I shouldn't throw anything off. And so she pulls the card. And as you can see, it's the two of clubs. So, honey, next in line to pick a card, any card is Mari. And of course, she gets the card, the queen card. Now, I have to say, the way that Van and Ty set that card deck up to that card right there to potentially be pulled by Hannah definitely was genius. However, like I said, I would give Shauna her just dues. Ma'am, intuition, sixth sense be on point. Okay, so since everything got thrown off, Mari has picked the queen card. And to be honest with you, at first I was like, oh man, but I remembered how she did coach. So I was like, she gonna have to learn in this moment that bacon is greasy. And it is. Of course, Van is not taking it lightly that Mari is the one that pulled the card. Because again, like I said, they had it set up for Hannah to get the card, but unfortunately, it just did not go that way. Now, even though I didn't feel a ways about Mari pulling the card, I was not here for Shauna and her nostrils to be all up in the girl's face, rubbing it in like, oh my God, it just annoyed me so bad. And then when she put the necklace around Mari's neck, I think it clicked on me the meaning of the necklace because it also brought me back to when Natalie put the necklace around Coach's neck, when they were getting ready to 86 him. Okay. So I assume that necklace it goes on every person that they have so-called sacrifice, with the exception of the guide. Baby, they just took him out of there, had all them arrows and everything poked up in old boy eye and face. But anyway, when she put the necklace around Mari's neck, that is what that necklace means. So anyone who has worn that necklace was sacrificed. So that would explain Shauna's reaction when she saw her daughter with that necklace on in the kitchen when, she was in there talking to Lottie. One thing about Mari, she was not trying to go out like no chump baby. She tried to reach for that knife. Unfortunately, Shauna caught her, shoved her, and pushed her over, and the girls ended up picking Mari from the ground. Here goes Shauna with that look on her face, nostrils flared. I did not understand why Van was like standing next to Shauna, like, Van, like, girl, she the one who blew the whole plan up. Like, why are you standing next to her? But like I said, Mari, she was a G about it.
You deserve everything that's coming to you.
8, 9.
And baby, here we got Travis. He is drinking a little bit of that potion, okay? He is on one. And at some point, he even says to Shauna, he was like, do you realize that none of this is real? Like, none of this even matters or whatever? Because he was just, I think he just wanted to be zoned out. You know, he wanted to be zoned out of what was about to transpire. So Mari is already running and they go over to choose their weapons and, to cover their faces and just basically go out into the wilderness acting a whole plum fool, making all those noises and just basically hunting. That's exactly what they did. They were hunting. So Shauna goes over to Missy's house and Missy, she lets her in and she says, look, my whole house is being surveillance. There's a camera in every room. So if you're feeling froggy and decide to jump, just understand you are being recorded. And Shauna was like, girl, whatever. I'm not here for that. I cannot get in touch with my husband and my daughter. They have checked up out of the hotel and then checked up out of our house. Like, girl, all their belongings are gone. Like, what is going on? I do not understand. And Missy was like, oh, wow. Well, I guess they're trying to get away from you. And Shauna was like, girl, what are you talking about? And Miss was like, girl, don't play. She said, of all the people, you were the closest to the person that got rid of Lottie. Like, girl, your daughter, the one who sent Lottie to be with the Grand Reaper. Like, stop playing like you didn't know. And Shauna was like, girl, I did not know. And Miss was like, oh, for real, girl, you didn't know? So Missy realizes that Shauna did not know that Callie had anything to do with Lottie's unaliving. So, Shauna is in shock. And she was like, I don't understand, how did this come about? And she was like, well, she told me. And so Shauna was like, so she confessed. Shauna was like, oh my God, is she in jail? And Miss was like, no, girl, I didn't tell anybody. She was like, not even Walter. I didn't even tell Walter. And Shauna was like, I don't understand. Why would she do something like this? And Missy was like,
well, she was desperate for someone to talk to, and you were busy eating your ex-girlfriend's arm, so.
Misty was like, girl, your daughter felt like she could talk to me and she confided in your husband about the situation because you don't know how to be nobody's friend, Shauna. She was like, even Walter warned me that you didn't know how to be anyone's friend, but I wouldn't listen. So she basically let Shauna know, like, girl, you are so selfish. The only person you're concerned about is yourself. And everything that is going on right now are reactions to your selfish actions. Back in the wilderness, Mari is literally running for her life, okay? And she starts taking off her clothing. So as Mari is removing her clothing, I was like, okay, so I'm thinking, she like, look, if I gotta go, I'm gonna let hypothermia be the reason I get up out of here. I'm not about to let none of them, send me to be with the Grim Reaper. Like, nah, these are my, my friends or whatever. Like, I'm not about to let none of them take me out. So I'm thinking she's undressing for that reason. And then also I was thinking maybe she was just taking her clothes off and just leaving them in sporadic places so no one could really track her and figure out where she was. So while all this is going on, honey, Shauna is up in Thaisa's face because Thaisa, they two are hunting together or whatever. And Thaisa want to go one way and Shauna want to go another. And Shauna basically steps to Thaisa. It's like, you're trying to throw me off. You're trying to give her time to get away. And baby, Ty had to let Shauna know real quick.
You know what's good for you. You'll back up.
So Akila, she is not really participating in the hunt. She ends up going back to the cave. So Akila sees Lottie in the cave. And this is where we learn that the whole scenario with the animals and everything was planned out. And, Lottie says to Akila, she said, I know that, really bothered you to do that, but, you did what needed to be done. And Akila says to Lottie, she said, you had me believing that my visions were true. Like everything I was seeing was legit and was real. And Lottie was like, well, they were. And Akila was like, no, they weren't. Travis already told me, Travis already gave me the whole spiel that all this mess that has been going on was not really the real deal. So this is where we see Akila mixing up whatever concoction she used to unalive all the animals. And, we also get a moment in the cave where she basically tells Lottie, all of this is your fault. Like, you're the cause of all of this. You're the reason why all this stuff is going on because you refuse to let us leave. Like, girl, We would not be still here. I would not have had to do what I did to those animals if you had just shut up and let us go home. So Mari's friend runs into Thaisa and Shauna, and the girl says to Ty, "Hey, Van hurt her ankle. We need to go help her." And Ty was like, "Oh my God!" And she's like, "No, she's okay, but she needs some help getting back to camp or whatever." And Shauna was like, "No, she's lying. She's just trying to throw us off." And Ty is like, whatever, Shauna, I'm not trying to hear that." So she ends up leaving with Mari's friend, and this is Shauna, picking up some of Mari's clothing. So, honey, Mari is running through the snow and ice, barefoot and all. And of course, she has to have the typical horror movie slip and fall. I was
I can't take this shit no more.
of course this was going to happen. Of course you were going to hurt your foot. I'm like, at this point, whatever happens, happens, right? Like, it's inevitable. And while Mari is trying to get herself together and get on the good foot, honey, her friend is still going to bat for her.
Whoa, what did I miss?
Mari's my friend. I'm just trying to give her a fighting chance.
So Mari falls again, okay? And when she falls this time, she ends up seeing Lottie. And so Lottie is looking at her and she says, "Mari, doesn't this place look familiar to you? You've been here before." And when she said that, I was like, oh my gosh. So I'm not going to lie. I thought Lottie in this moment was going to be the one to take Mari out. But when Mari got up and she was like, "F you," or whatever, and she started back running, I was like, oh my gosh, she about to fall in a trap. And sure enough, that is exactly what happened. So Mari runs and falls into the trap. But this ain't just any trap. The trap is the same hole that Mari fell in and busted her knee and Coach pulled her up out of. Okay. This is the trap that Travis set for Lottie because he was like, "I'm ready to go home and you in the way. You got to go." So the fact that Lottie said to her, "You've been here before," she absolutely had been there before. The only difference is you got pulled out of the hole, but when they pull you out this trap, you're not coming back. And this is Lottie walking over to the trap and she sees Mari. Now, the only upside to what happened with Mari is that none of them actually got to physically take her out. Okay. This was honestly to her own undoing, Mari. Okay. She ran into the trap. It is what it is. So I do appreciate the fact that none of them got to actually physically take her out. Like, this just happened and it is what it is. So they blow the horn, which lets everyone know that the hunt is off because, Mari has gone to be with the Grim Reaper. But honey, Shauna and her boo thing end up getting into a tussle, okay? And baby, old girl, she almost had Shauna. She was literally choking the life out of Shauna. Like, we actually got to see Shauna's face turn blue, but she ended up chickening out.
I knew you'd turn out to be boring.
So Ty ends up meeting up with Misty, and she is basically telling Misty that, you know, she has allowed herself to start remembering everything, all the things that happened, back in the wilderness. And she ultimately has come to the assumption that a lot of the things that have transpired there and now is because of Shauna. And she just basically says,
If we keep letting this slide, she's gonna end up being the last one standing. And I don't want that. Do you?
No, I definitively do not.
and y'all, I don't know what's going on with Walter, but I am ready to find out because when I saw him watching Ty and Misty at the diner, I was like, something is up with him. He has ties to one of the Yellowjackets, or he has ties to possibly the guide that was, trying to guide the frog people through the forest and the wilderness, or he has ties to the head scientist guy over the frogs, Hannah's boyfriend. I'm wondering if he could potentially have been Hannah's boyfriend's son or the guide's son, or is he potentially one of the sons of the Yellowjackets who we have not yet gotten to meet as an adult? But something is definitely up with him. He has ties to the Yellowjackets. He got ties to somebody. And I hope that we find out in season 4 if there's a season 4. It should be a season 4, but I am curious as to exactly who this fool is. So Shauna, she finally gets a text message from her husband, and he was like, "We are safe, but need space. Please don't keep calling. Like, girl, leave us alone." So Shauna discovers this letter that was under the refrigerator in the kitchen, and she picks it up and she opens it, and the letter happened to be from, her boo thing. And so she's reading the letter, and we also get to see in a flash that the note was in the package that the tape came in, and when Callie opened it, it ended up flying under the refrigerator. So Shauna starts to read the letter, and at this point, she ends up going over to the sink and she starts washing dishes, or no, she tears the letter up. Excuse me. She ends up tearing the letter up. I think she ends up putting it in the garbage disposal. And while she's doing this, she's having all these flashes of stuff that happened while they were out in the wilderness, and also her, 86 and that dude that she was messing around with. And she starts to break down and cry. Like, she literally just starts boohooing and bawling. But to me, that was her kryptonite, honey, because after those tears was over, ma'am started sitting down and reflecting on what happened while she was in the wilderness. So she starts writing, and she starts saying that she feels like the fact that they were able to block so much out is because ultimately, for her, she's speaking for herself, she enjoyed it. She was just like, girl, we were able to kind of be desensitized to the things that we were doing over there because we actually were having fun. We actually enjoyed it. She was like, honey, I was a whole queen over there. Okay. So while the adult Shauna is reflecting on her time in the wilderness, honey, and writing down her thoughts, we get to see Shauna getting dressed and ready for the feast that they are about to have with Mari's body. Okay. Now, after they pulled Mari up out of the trap or whatever, they strung her up on a tree, and Shauna basically tells them, get her body ready for tonight and make sure you bring me her hair. So as you can see, the Antler Queen, okay, aka Shauna, honey, she has Mari's hair all up and through this garb, okay? So Shauna, she ends up bringing out this tray of meat, aka Mari's flesh, okay? And I'm like, are they even cooking this stuff, or are they eating it raw? Nonetheless, she brings it out and she basically says to everyone,
Eat. And never forget this.
so everything is over. The night has fallen and the day has come in, and everyone is just sitting around, I guess, just taking in everything that happened the night before with them feasting on Mari's body. And here we have the Antler Queen, honey, in all her antler drapery. Like, girl, sitting up here pulling and just playing with Mari's hair. I do not like this girl.
No, I don't.
So Shauna walks up to who she thinks is Natalie, and she starts talking and saying, I know that y'all were up to something in this and that and the third. And so the person doesn't say anything, and she getting ready to walk into the hut, right? And so Shauna's like, so you don't have anything to say? And she pulls her mask off and she sees that it's Hannah. When I tell you the look on her face was everything, yes. I was like, that is what's up. And, like we saw earlier in the episode, Natalie got to confront Hannah because she felt like Hannah was basically trying to do her dirty. She was like, I'm trying to go home. And Hannah was like, I'm just trying to get along with everybody. I want to go home too. I want out of here. I'm just trying to basically get in where I fit in. So they end up switching clothes, clearly, because Shauna thought that Hannah was Natalie. So, honey, when I tell you, she had a whole fit, baby, nostrils flared all the way up to the sky. She was like,
What the hell? Where the fuck is Natalie?
so they finally had enough cojones to get together and go against the grain, aka Shauna. Honey, When Misty pulled her little mask off and she had that smirk with that busted lip that Natalie gave her, okay, I was like, that's what's up, because y'all finally get it. It is more of y'all than it is her. Okay. Did it come at the expense of Mari? Yes, it did, but it is what it is. So they literally had a whole scheme to figure out how to keep Shauna distracted so they can get Natalie to go handle some business to get them the heck up out of there. So, Shauna, you want to know where Natalie is, honey? She is all the way at the mountaintop, okay? Like, she trying to go tell it on a mountain. Ma'am is as close as she can get to the sky because she was like, I need this signal to do what it do. So Natalie opens up that phone box and she screws in that little piece, baby. And the signal started signaling, okay? Like, she wasted no time. She picked up that dog on phone. She was yelling. She was like, can anybody hear me? It's just like, get somebody the F up here. Like, come get us. We are here. Can anybody hear me? Like, she is literally screaming in the phone. Like, she's basically screaming for her life. You know what I'm saying? Like, we saw how the whole plan, when the whole situation with Hannah and the guide, how that went awry, how it just basically made her feel defeated. You know what I'm saying? Like, Natalie literally felt defeated. We saw her crying. We saw the snow coming down. Like, she literally was yelling in that phone like her life depended on it, because it did. And ultimately,
Can anyone hear me?
so y'all, she was able to get someone to respond. Okay. Now, I assume we are going to get a season 4, because clearly they cannot let the show end like this. But I do think that if there is going to be a season 4, that will be the last season. And quiet as it's kept, if they get to go home, which I assume they will get to go home, they should go home. Then we get to see how everything happened once they do get home as teenagers, because we know how some of them are currently living as adults, but we get to actually see them be rescued and taken home. We get to see the media blitz, all the things that are going to follow these teenagers coming back home. We get to see how everything is going to pan out, how they are going to try to cover up all the cannibalism and things that occurred while they were, out in the wilderness. So I am so looking forward to seeing all of that unfold, as well as exactly what is going on with Walter. Hopefully, we get to see if Akila, if she makes it to adult age, the young lady who was Mari's friend. I mean, it's a lot that we get to see unfold. I wonder if they are also going to play into the whole situation with Shauna's boo thing, the girl who faked her own unaliving. I wonder if we're gonna see that come into play in season 4 as well. It's a lot that they can unpack. I'm just ready for them to get from over there. I'm curious as to how they're going to explain to Coach's family what happened to him. I guess we are going to end up seeing what happens to Hannah, and I'm not going to be surprised if Shauna is the culprit behind whatever happens to Hannah. Okay. I just look forward to season 4, because I'm tired of them being in the wilderness. Okay. I'm ready for them to get back to what is going to be left of reality. And I'm curious to see how they're going to explain away everybody that was unalive. Jackie, Mari, Travis's brother. Like, how are they going to explain all this stuff away? You know what I'm saying? So season 4 is definitely going to be a whirlwind. This season finale, like I said, it was a lot. I did not appreciate the fact that Van did not get her due diligence with the grieving from Ty. I don't appreciate that, but the show must go on, okay? But I guess we shall see what is going to happen in season 4. Once it gets here, we shall see. We shall see. Well, that's all I have for you guys in this video. Please be sure to like, share, subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate the support, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.